emotional intelligence, getting in touch with who you are and trying to move towards some kind of transcendence of expressing yourself and making connections with other people. You learn all that stuff from women. You never learn it from other guys. You just go into this repetitive holding pattern with other guys. And that's why a lot of men are so depressed, because they don't listen to women enough. Hi, I'm Irvine Welsh, and I'm here to talk about my new book, Men in Love, but also how that book grew out of my old book, my very first book that I wrote called Trainspotting, which is an immediate follow-up from Trainspotting. So let's get on with it. So here we have the romance of a Scottish discotheque. The volcano. The connection between that and Men in Love book is obviously the Renton character, and we can see there that Renton is a kind of slightly softer and more romantic character than maybe some of the rest of the characters. So that kind of sets him up as the romantic idealist, the lover rather than the shagger, basically. These characters would very much aspire to love, but they wouldn't really have the tools to engage properly to sort of be good boyfriends or good partners, because they've come out of addiction, but they're also young guys. Everything that they've had has been, girlfriends have been incidental to their friendship, basically. And now for the first time, they're in that era whereby their partners become more important to them. It's an interesting transition for young working class guys of that era. So I wanted to write about that, basically. I think the times we're in right now are interesting, because these guys back then were all from the industrial working class, and they had this existential fear that they've become irrelevant, they've become redundant because their work, the traditional heavy industry work, is gone. And what do? Now I think everybody has that fear. We're all sort of members of the precariat, and we all feel that the last of our jobs are going to go through AI. So what do we do? So these big existential questions, I think, are being asked in a much broader way now. And I think addiction is also much broader. Addiction's to do with the technology and the governmental systems that we're in. So there's no way of avoiding addiction. I mean, our mobile phones are pathways to all sorts of addictions. Now that in some ways the times now are much more intensive than they were then. So that's why I think Trainspotting's carried on having relevance. Yeah, this is the dead baby scene, which is a very kind of, a very harrowing scene, a very difficult one to write, and a very difficult one for the actors to perform as well. It's sort of, it's that kind of thing that it's really put in the book and also put in the film to show that there is that kind of grey area between neglect and between some tragedy like cot death, which is unavoidable. And it's that kind of thing that you find when you're in an addictive cycle like that. You find something that really is horrendous, and it might have happened anyway, but again, it might not, and it might have been your addiction and your neglect and your self-centered kind of drug behavior that's facilitated that, and you never really know. It's a human dilemma, but it's a contested area. Yeah, in terms of, it is a scene about responsibility, and in terms of Men in Love, they really, after Sick Boy's kind of failed attempt at fatherhood here, he has to start to try and take it more seriously in Men in Love, because he has a kid with his wife in Men in Love, and Spud also is moving in that direction. So they're moving towards having these responsibilities that they're not really equipped to have, but they're trying to learn. You know, when you think about it, and you're people in their mid-20s, you've got to decide, what am I going to do in my life? Are we going to be together? Are we going to be separate? Are we going to live together? If we live together, we're going to get married. If we get married, are we going to have kids? If we have kids, how many? What kind of careers are we going to have? Are we both going to have careers? Are one of us going to retrain? With, you know, all these massive decisions, and you don't even know which pub you're going to go to. You know what I mean? It's like you've come out of this and into this life-changing era of decision making, and it's, to me, that's That's all that potential for a fabulous, it's a fabulous drama, and it's such a dramatic time. So everything can go wrong, and that's the great point of writing the book, basically.
This was typical of Mikey Forrester. What the fuck are these? Under the normal run of things.
Well, this scene is basically, it's about the deciding to stop drugs. There's actually me in that scene. Selling the drugs. Sometimes you've got to work with the drug that you're trying to stop. You don't always have the resources to stop a drug. You have to be honest with yourself. I mean, sometimes you don't really want to stop taking the drug. What you want to do is you want to kind of detox, so you can start again. Basically, you can start again with a clean slate. Only it's obviously not a clean slate. It's part of the kind of ratchet of addiction. But when you're young and you're desperate and you're inexperienced, you believe your ego's still in control, and your ego believes that you can master the drug, that you can somehow control this drug. And we delude ourselves, and then we finally get to that point of saying, no, can't make any accommodation with this, have to stop it, basically. And he's not at that point yet in this. His ego's still in control. He still believes that he can clean up and then start again. I mean, in terms of me playing the drug dealer, I don't know. I think that was the director and the casting agent that decided to do that. I think I look like a drug dealer. That's why. I mean, I used to with a friend of mine. We used to deal drugs, but it was kind of ecstasy and speed rather than heroin.
Phenomenon in all walks of life. What do you mean?
Right, so kind of Sick Boy's philosophy of life that you have to do things now, in the moment, because time isn't kind to anybody. It's not kind to the way you look or the way you act or the way you sound, and you're also on a trajectory which becomes narrower and narrower. It's very difficult to make different decisions when you get past a certain point in life, So you have to really live for today and get everything sorted out in the moment that you're in. That's very much his philosophy. So he wants everything quite immediately. If you look at what happens in the world, this is how we've all become like this a bit. We're all victims of this kind of accelerationism. We want to sprint off towards the edge of the cliff and jump off as soon as we can. They're referencing the kind of great triumvirate of like Iggy Pop, David Bowie and Lou Reed, and they're looking at how you have something and then you lose it. The interesting thing about it is it's like these guys kind of much had it until they finished. Bowie was doing his very best work on his deathbed, practically. Iggy Pop is kind of a stronger force than ever now culturally, and he's out there still doing it. Lou Reed's no longer with us as well, but he was still doing sort of kind of edgy stuff right into the end. And now if you look at the way that culture has become so disposable now because of the internet, and it's so hard for people to get noticed, it's almost impossible to think of young artist equivalents today having that kind of run. It's a tribute to a lost way of life, if you like, in terms of art and culture. Everybody can do it now, but nobody takes any notice. Bowie, Iggy and Lou have just been massively inspiring to me. I mean, for me it's impossible to imagine having a creative life without these guys. It's impossible to imagine like Trainspotting, Filth or Men in Love or Glue or anything like that without them. They were my art school, basically.
Choose life, choose a job, choose a career.
Yes, so this is the start of kind of very near the start of the film when they have the big chase scene. To me, it's one of the greatest openings of filming ever. And I remember talking to Danny, the director, about this. And one of the things, we both loved the opening to Saturday Night Fever. When you see John Travolta walking down the street in his leathers and his jeans and all that, and he's swinging this tin of paint, he's walking down Broadway. You've got the Bee Gees sort of Staying Alive kind of kicking in. And that scene just tells you everything about that guy, you know. He's a working class guy, he's in New York, he's young and positive and vibrant, you know. This is in some ways trying to do the same thing, you know. These guys are running away from the police, so you know they're outlaws. You can see they're in Edinburgh, you know, it's Princes Street and the castle. You can see that they live a subterranean life because they're going right down into the tunnel, basically. But they're so full of joy and optimism for life as well, and that kind of underground sort of kind of vagabond outlaw life, like, you know. So Lust for Life is kind of playing as well, you know. So I think it's such a great scene because it tells you everything about them and tells you everything about the show you're going to watch. I've got a record label, and we have a lot of great young artists who 20 years ago, if they were producing that stuff, they'd be world famous and they'd be rich. And now nobody cares because it's so hard because everybody's doing it. You know, so there's a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of brilliant stuff coming out, but it just never gets attraction, and it's all so diffuse now. The label is called Jack Said What, and you'll find us online. Check out our stuff because it is a great label with some great artists, and we've brought out some fabulous music, and we'd love to share it with you.
Is it true that you refused to make music for the Trainspotting soundtrack because you thought it would be a boring movie about people spotting trains?
Nobody told me. Why was it not called fucking heroin fucking...
Funny, it was an 80s book that became a 90s sort of cultural phenomenon. I think a lot of the people that were big musicians of the time, like Noel and Damon, were very generous in championing Trainspotting, and I think that kind of really helped, you know. And loads of other artists as well, loads of musicians and people in the music industry. A lot of the people that I knew that I'd kind of really loved as a young punk and then as a sort of acid house sort of head, they were all really up for Trainspotting as well. So they made such a big difference to making it part of that whole cultural fabric. This is the Men in Love album, basically, that we did to accompany the book, which I think the great thing about it is that the book is like, when you're talking about love, you're talking about the men's experience of love. The album lets the women kind of have a say and criticise the men, you know, basically call them out on their bullshit. Yeah, which is, so it's the album's more of a conversation between men and women. It features these two brilliant vocalists, Shauna Scoffery and Louise Marshall, who are absolutely fabulous, and the kind of thing, the mood we wanted to have, a kind of disco, kind of Philly soul type album, you have to have brilliant vocalists to do that. We thought, what is a genre that people will know and dance to throughout the generations? It's always there in the background, like disco and soul is always just there, basically. And but the one that we focused on most was disco, because it was just a pure joy to do, you know. So we just decided to do a disco album for this book. I think love has probably killed more people than heroin. I think it has been a more dangerous drug. I think we've all done stupid things in love, you know. We've done stupid things in war as well. But I think the great thing about falling in love, it is kind of temporary insanity, and you have to realise that if you fall in love, you have to give yourself permission to be insane for a certain period of time anyway, before you actually master that sort of the rushes of that kind of drug. The guys are supposed to be 25, and they're supposed to feel about love like 25-year-olds feel about love. You know, everybody's on their own personal learning curve, basically, you know. And I think you get to a certain stage in life, if you're a guy, that you realise that everything worthwhile that I've ever learned in life has come from women. None of it's come from guys, basically. Emotional intelligence, getting in touch with who you are and trying to move towards some kind of transcendence of expressing yourself and making connections with other people. You learn all that stuff from women. You never learn it from other guys. You just go into this repetitive holding pattern with other guys. And that's why a lot of men are so depressed, because they don't listen to women enough. So that was me talking about Men in Love and Trainspotting, and thank you very much for staying with us.